Progressives in Congress have taken a far more conciliatory approach toward corporate Democrats rather than build pressure by holding their vote as a block. Now, this story has to do with the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and keep in mind that some of the notable progressive Democrats like AOC, Ilhan Omar, these are people who are part of that caucus. And it appears that they're much more willing to just work alongside corporate Democrats as opposed to use whatever leverage they have in order to ensure that their provisions are included in things like Biden's infrastructure bill. Now, one part of the story that you'll notice is that corporate media seems to be applauding this move, even though the same isn't expected of corporate Democrats in Congress. So let me give you the details. As Bloomberg writes, rather than starting a rival group within the Democratic Party, far left members are joining and taking leadership positions in the 95-member Congressional Progressive Caucus that's been around for 3 decades, and they've been largely ineffective. Now, Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar, also elected in 2018, now leads the CPC's vote counting team. And Representative Mondaire Jones also weighed in on this, giving us a little insight into what their strategy is by arguing where we can get victories, we should be concentrating our energies in those places. For example, lowering the age of Medicare eligibility over getting a floor vote for Medicare for all, since there isn't currently enough support in the House to pass the more comprehensive universal health program progressives would like to see. Now, Cenk, that might be a fair point regarding Medicare for all, but there are examples where all you need is just a few progressives to hold their vote in order to ensure that important provisions are included in must-pass legislation. So the economic relief bill that passed, that was must-pass legislation. And progressives could have held their vote and said, no, we're not gonna vote in favor of this unless it includes a $15 an hour minimum wage, for instance. Another example is this upcoming infrastructure bill, the one that was proposed by Biden. There's already some talk about corporate Democrats wavering on corporate tax increases because you have conservative Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin saying that he's uncomfortable with increasing the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. Even though it was 35% prior to Trump implementing tax cuts for the rich. Now, Manchin can hold up legislation, right? Manchin can play tough, hardball. But when it comes to progressive Democrats in the House, they're more willing to just work with what corporate Democrats want as opposed to threatening them with the leverage they have by holding the vote. I know you have a lot to say about this, but please jump in.
Yeah, so there's 2 parts of the story. One is the strategy of the progressive legislators, and the other is the mainstream media coverage of this that aids and abets, honestly, their surrender. And that's part of the reason why they don't fight, because they're afraid that the media is going to yell at them, and that if they surrender, the media is going to applaud them, which is exactly what's happening in these 2 stories on Bloomberg and The Hill. They're saying, bravo, way to not fight for any of your priorities. Now, if you think I'm exaggerating, I'm gonna give you the quotes and you're gonna see. First, The Hill says, leading progressives like AOC had a choice, and that they chose to, instead of challenging Democratic leaders from the sidelines or get in the game. That's the way that they framed it, right? Wait, why wouldn't holding up a bill being getting in the game? That would be getting in the game even more. When Manchin does it, you say he's very much in the game. And when Bill Pascrell and other conservative Democrats say they will not vote for a bill unless it has the new tax cuts in it for the blue states, that's being in the game. But when the progressives choose not to use their leverage, you somehow say that means they're not on the sidelines. No, that's the exact opposite of what's happening. That means they are choosing to put themselves on the sidelines and not fight for any of their priorities. I'm gonna prove that more as we go. But Bloomberg frames it as it gives them clout. Clout to do what? You're supposed to use the clout to get your priorities. If you say, I'm going to jettison all my priorities and I have clout, okay, congratulations, your ego is now bigger. Woohoo! Wow, I'm so thrilled for you. They explain it, continuing on in Bloomberg, that members of Representative Ocasio-Cortez's so-called squad are taking leadership roles in the House That must be great for them. And building experience on Capitol Hill. Experience doing what? Passing our priorities? No, passing their like the priorities of corporate Democrats. I don't see how this helps us. Remember when we defeated all those corporate Democrats, the number one thing they would say is, no, don't pick people like AOC. We have all the experience. Experience doing what, okay? And then continuing in Bloomberg, turning them into not just ideological purists, but also strategic legislators. No, wait a minute. How is that strategic? Using your leverage as Manchin is doing, and as the conservative Democrats in the House are using to get their priorities in the bill is being strategic. Saying that you will not use your leverage is the opposite of being strategic. But yet the mainstream media says, attaboy, attagirl, way to not do anything. That way I'll call you smart. If you actually use your leverage, I would call you dumb, and I would call you mean, and I would help Democratic leadership intimidate you. That's just the reality. I don't care if anybody gets uncomfortable with that. That is what's happening in Washington, but there's so much more. They say liberal Democrats are also advocates for direct payments to individuals and for housing and food assistance, as if those are the concessions that they won in the COVID relief bill. Wait, who was against housing and food assistance? That was the whole point of the bill. Literally, no one was against that in the Democratic Party. Advocates for direct payments to individuals, they ran all the ads saying they were gonna give $2,000. Everybody was in favor of that. They're making it seem like, oh, you're so strategic. You won the things that 100% of Democrats agreed with. You know what that means? In reality, you won nothing. Bupkis. You didn't get any of your priorities. And Bloomberg clarifies, and they're vowing to continue pushing for the $15 minimum wage. In other words, they didn't get their priority of the $15 minimum wage. And by the way, is that even true? No, that's not true. You go to the Hill story and you ask them what their 5 priorities are. $15 minimum wage is not among them. So they have, now this is, guys, what's amazing about this is that Chuck Schumer, one of the top corporate Democrats of my life, has said publicly that he's considering putting the $15 minimum wage in the infrastructure bill. That's a gift from the gods. I'm shocked by that, and I know why he's doing it, because he doesn't want AOC to run against him in New York, right? And the progressives in the House, and by the way, in the Senate, they're just letting it go. They're just going, oh, we're not even gonna make it part of our priorities. Schumer has outflanked them on the left. They've let Democratic leadership pretend to be on their left. And they have not asked for a single thing that's in our priorities. Is Medicare for all in there? No. Is $15 minimum wage in there? No. Are any of the other, is police reform in there? No. You name a major progressive priority, they have not fought at all for any of them. It is a stunning surrender to a standing ovation by the mainstream media.
And I think part of what we're noticing with the left, and I know that that's an incredibly vague term. A lot of the conversation, a lot of the debate has been focused on whether or not someone is a fraud, whether or not someone is actually going to carry out what they were voted to carry out in representing the best interests of progressives who want leftist policies implemented, who want a $15 an hour minimum wage, who want to do big, bold structural change to what we've been experiencing, the very structure that's led to the inequality that we're experiencing right now. And part of the reason why the conversations have devolved to that is because we keep seeing progressive lawmakers abandon what they claim they're there for, and they're playing patty cakes with corporate Democrats. And then at the same time, look, here's the thing. If their strategy was actually in some way successful, okay, fine, then we're having a conversation. But as Cenk laid out, they have not been successful. And at the same time, what we're seeing is, these conservative Democrats, people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, use their leverage And corporate Democrats concede to them, they cave to them, they do everything and anything to appeal to them to ensure that they can pass their legislation. It's insane. One other thing I wanted to mention, Cenk, is that in the in the Congressional Progressive Caucus, there's 95 members, right? Now, Nancy Pelosi cannot afford to lose many Democratic votes when it comes to legislation. She has the majority by just 7 votes, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I'm referring to the progressives having leverage. They could essentially sink a bill unless they get what they want. But here's the catch. So the CPC, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, changed its rules after last year's election to require members to vote as a block on issues that are supported by 2/3 of the group, at least 2/3 of the time, similarly to the unity pledge that the conservative House Freedom Caucus requires. Okay, well, if you're a progressive, a real progressive, and you don't agree with that, and you don't want to just go along with what a bunch of fakers in the Congressional Progressive Caucus want to do, then form your own block. Why even be part of this caucus if they're unwilling to actually hold Nancy Pelosi, Democratic leadership, accountable, right? The CPC has not gone against Nancy Pelosi once. They've been incredibly ineffective, and they refuse to go against her. So is AOC, and I don't mean to just pick on her, but are progressive Democrats in Congress gonna get what they want by playing patty cakes with Nancy Pelosi? No, they're not. They haven't succeeded so far. What makes them think they're gonna succeed moving forward?
Look, I gotta be honest with you guys. I'm gonna name one name here. The leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus is Pramila Jayapal. And she, in agreeing to that rule, if the majority of the Progressive Caucus was actually progressive, that would be a fine rule. That's what the Freedom Caucus used on the right wing side to get a lot of their demands. But since the majority of the Progressive Caucus is not actually progressive, what it does is it quashes dissent, and it says to the Justice Democrats in that caucus, you are not ever allowed to vote against us. That makes no sense. Pramila Jayapal is quoted in the Hill story as being proud that she's not like the Freedom Caucus. But the Freedom Caucus got almost all their priorities. That's too much, but a lot of their priorities, right? And everybody in Washington was super frustrated. We have to make another concession to the Tea Party, to the Freedom Caucus, to the Freedom, another concession, another concession. How many concessions has Pramila Jayapal gotten? Nearly none. None. And she brags about it. So now let me give you more evidence. They go back to Bloomberg. Here's a paragraph from them. And this is revealing, it's accidentally revealing. They write, progressives opted not to withhold their votes against Biden's virus-related package after some of their priorities were excluded. An example of their willingness to accept half measures and push for more in the next bill. But wait a minute, what was the half measure? So I told you what was in the bill before. It was everything that everybody agreed to. The only thing, if you stretch and stretch, is daycare, but that's only for 1 year as kind of an experiment. But Biden said he was in favor of that. So you got a concession out of Biden to do the thing that he promised he would do. And that's what you're bragging about? That's your big win of a half measure? Oh, it's getting embarrassing, guys. Now go to the Hill, and they also accidentally admit that the other strategy is actually the correct strategy. Here's a quote from them. So far, centrists like Manchin have outsized influence in demanding changes to bills when Democrats can't afford more than a couple of defections across both chambers. So while they're applauding the progressives for surrendering, they throw in there, by the way, Manchin, who fights on every bill, gets almost everything he wants. So tell me again, who's being strategic and who's getting played? Now, for the folks who think they have bad intent, I don't agree with that. So you can choose not to believe me. The facts are what we gave you, right? And now when we go to the interpretation, I know through a lot of experience and through studying this from the outside and the inside, that they're being gaslit, that they are generally speaking good people who have really, really gotten themselves to believe that half measures, and which are not half measures, as I just explained to you, they're the Obama model, basically 5%. 5% change is all that they could ever hope for and that they should bow their heads. And if they do, they will be rewarded with incredibly positive media coverage, which is true. And if they dare rise up to challenge any bill on any progressive priority, that they will be lambasted, and that is true. Well, then I gotta ask, do you have the courage to do what you told your voters you were gonna do? I don't agree with Mondaire Jones. He says, we should push for lowering the Medicare age requirement, but we should not push for Medicare for all vote. Wait, why shouldn't we? So we're gonna get to let another 2 years go by. And we're not even gonna know who the bad guys are who are against Medicare for all. That's exactly right. Pramila Jayapal and the others are protecting the conservative Democrats who want to keep taking money from the healthcare industry and the drug companies and don't want to be put on the record on Medicare for all. So I'm not interested in you protecting your colleagues. I'm interested in you passing bills. And so far, honestly, there's small bills and small priorities that have gotten in there. But in terms of the big ones that we all know, college for all, you name it, none of them have passed. And it looks like none of them even have a prayer of passing, and they're saying they don't even want to try. I've got to give you one last quote. It's from The Hill. Ask why progressives have not flexed their political muscle. So there they are, the mainstream media even admitting they haven't even flexed their muscles. Ask why they didn't do that and threatened to kill Democratic bills to get more of their priorities. See, even The Hill acknowledges if you threaten to kill a bill, not actually kill a bill, threaten to kill a bill, you will get your priorities. So even The Hill, who's trying to applaud him, goes, why are you guys schmucks? Why haven't you flexed your muscles at all? Why haven't you threatened a bill? They say one progressive House aide replied, quote, Democrats believe in government. What's the cost benefit of blowing up a bill? What's the alternative? No, those are fair questions as to what the alternative is. But the alternative
maybe ask Joe Manchin about that. Maybe ask Joe Manchin and other corporate Democrats about that. That question is never asked when it comes to corporate Democrats carrying out the best interests of corporations. But sorry to interrupt you. It's funny how that double standard exists.
Yeah, and they were getting played so badly. Because a lot of them are new to this, right? And they're not experts in this. And they 24/7, everybody in Washington's telling them, whatever you do, do not cause good trouble. Do not cause it. Just listen and get a 5% half measure. All right. Anyway, in this case, what I was gonna say is, look, they think that, then the bill is dead. The bill is not dead. Biden was going to pass COVID relief no matter what. They're going to pass the defense bill no matter what. They're going to pass the budget bill no matter what. They're going to pass the infrastructure bill. The question is are your priorities in it, or are you not, or are they not? If you don't insist on your priorities, then it is an absolute guarantee that they will not be in the bill. The chance of these, they're called must pass bills because they must pass. The only question is whether you're part of the negotiations or you aren't. And so far, the progressive strategy on this, and again, I gotta be honest with you, the person in charge of that strategy right now is Pramila Jayapal. And her strategy, which she brags about, is no, let us not ask for our priorities. Let us wait for the next bill, as I quoted you earlier, and then hope for a half measure on that next bill. By the way, she said that about COVID relief bill. Here we are on the next bill, the infrastructure bill. And guess what she's saying? Next bill, no. Then you've lost all credibility and it appears you're never gonna fight for us. That means, look, that really means only the hope left is Nina Turner. If Nina goes in and does the same thing, then all hope is lost. These folks will never fight for us. But there's still hope, and you just need one leader. You just need one person to actually do the right thing, and the rest will be embarrassed and join their efforts. But not one of them right now is sticking their neck out.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.